Hello, welcome to the Ghost of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 207 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today, we'll be discussing chapter 63 of A Storm of Swords. That's Davos 6. And by the way, all the way through my practice, I call Davos Stannis. I do it all the time. So that's going to make it difficult to unpick what's going on here when I just mix those two guys up.
Like me and Cersei and Sansa.
Yes.
Anyway, we're going to chat about the chapter, and we're going to try not to spoil any future plot points for you. But hopefully we're going to provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to a television show, indulge a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out our show notes. They'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, Mackelly?
I'm doing all right. You know what today is? And no, I'm not going to say Molly's third week of school.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
I was prepped for that. I don't know what today is.
Today is our 10th gotcha day for Penny. So we've had her 10 years to the day.
Oh, interesting.
So
I don't know gotcha days for my dogs.
I
or their birthdays, honestly.
It is a Facebook thing, I think.
Right.
And that's how I knew. On Facebook 10 years ago, there was a post about, getting Penny. So
man, time has flown.
No kidding.
I feel like Penny's just a recent addition to your family, but 10 years.
10 years. 10 years of snarling and growling and all the fun stuff that she does. But being cute at the same time.
She is cute. I took my Penny for a walk this morning, which is unheard of.
Oh, yeah?
Pre-work. Like in the 60s, I was walking the dog.
Yes. Oh, at the 6s, did you say, or 60s?
In the 6s.
Okay,
but yes,
yeah.
it was also in the 60s probably as well.
It was. Stacey and I have been walking in the mornings before work, and yeah, it was like 64 degrees this morning while we were walking, so it's kind of nice.
I had to pause then because Penny knew I was talking about her and she went barking past the door.
I thought that's what I heard, yes.
Mm-hmm. She also noticed that normally when I do walk the dogs, I walk them both. But I only walked Penny this morning. And so I just took one little poop bag with me. And so she was like, challenge accepted.
That is the way it goes.
How are you going to pick up that one?
That's always fun.
Dogs.
The worst is when, you've watched Penny before, and you've seen our leash with the little dog bone that holds the bags. The worst is when you don't realize that you used the last one on the last trip.
Last time.
And then you're like, uh-oh. What am I going to do now? So,
do you dump your poop bags into other people's trash cans on like trash day?
I don't, but I don't have an issue with it. But my neighborhood Facebook page is filled with enough people complaining about other people doing it that I don't do it. But if I'm being honest, we did when we first got a dog. We're just like, I just dump it in here. And then I started seeing Facebook post messages about such a thing, such behavior, and I was like, oh, I guess I shouldn't do that.
we had a house that had a dumpster outside it for probably a year, and I always thought it'd be kind of funny to dump my poop in the dumpster, but I never did it because it's the dumpster. I mean, that's going to hang around until they remove the dumpster.
Right? Yes.
And I was walking the dog with Natalie and Alec, and Natalie just went straight in as she walked past. She's like, I do it every time. I'm like, the dumpster's probably full.
The dumpster is to the brim.
On the subject of dumpsters, actually, I've been having some work done on my house, which has just been endless.
Yes.
But Monday, just a couple of days ago, a lady from the local soccer league that I play in was looking for someone on my team who lived near her that she could drop off some t-shirts at their house. And so I was the closest volunteer, so I said, yeah, sure. So I gave her my address and I said, it's the one with the big yellow dumpster in the driveway. And would you believe they took the dumpster that day? After 13 weeks, they took the dumpster that day. I was like, what are the chances?
Yep, that is the way that it goes. Just like when you only bring one poop bag for your dog. Yeah, that is. Now, is this you mentioned you have in the notes here Rob's car? Is that new or is that old?
Rob told an interesting story. It's I'm not going to relate it all because it was extremely long, and as he himself said, it's mostly boring. But it was quite interesting. His boss. So if you remember, you know where he lives. He lives on this farm in France, and he recently sold it to a lady in England, and her stepfather died of old age in France not long after the sale, but about a year ago kind of thing. And he bequeathed his goods to her, the daughter who lives in England.
Right. Okay.
One of the goods was a French car. She has no need of a French car. So she had her employee, my brother, deal with this car. And he's been dealing with it for a year now. It got into one of those situations where all he wanted to do was sell it.
Right.
But to sell it, he had to get it inspected. To get it inspected, he had to have insurance. And to have insurance, he had to get the registration updated. But this was like a circle of things that couldn't happen. It was a perfect circle. Each one required the next one in the chain, and round it went. It was
just drove it into a lake.
He said, so I walked into the insurance office for the 4th time that day. He said, we talked about driving into a lake or something. He said, oh yeah, I mean, if I'd known, I would have done that straight away.
Day one.
But he said even to scrap it, he had to do certain things. And he said it's a perfectly reasonable car. I mean, she can sell it and get some money for it, but it's been a real pain for him. But he said he's on the clock, so he doesn't really mind.
Oh goodness. Well,
are you going to have a birthday before the next episode?
Yes, I am.
Wow, look at me knowing your birthday.
That's why I'm so stunned. Yes, I in fact am going to indeed have a birthday.
In perhaps related news, the manager tier of your work colleagues puts together a weekly newsletter which features the birthdays of people.
Totally unrelated to this conversation.
I was like, I know that guy. I should mention that.
I love the story about how you share a birthday with one of our very close colleagues and good friends. And for years, she would wish you a happy birthday on that day. And you would totally forget that it was her birthday as well. That is something.
But you know what? It's really there now. Funnily enough, I was thinking about that very fact earlier today because I was talking to my other friend who also shares my birthday.
Oh,
and
wow!
We were
busy birthday.
Yeah. So I have a friend at work I have 2 friends at work with whom I share a birthday, and he, the one I was talking to today, has a twin brother who I presume also shares our birthday.
Who knew? Like a quarter of the world shares your birthday.
So it's a big day, But when I was talking to him about it, he made some comment about my memory, and I said, yeah, I mean, my memory is terrible. When's your birthday again? Just a joke, you see. But with our mutual friend, I honestly, every time she told me, I was like, you did tell me that.
For 10 straight years. But only one time a year. That's the problem.
Yeah, usually 2 days after my birthday where I'd be like, oh, God, I feel bad now. But then I got 363 days to try and remember this thing. Right. It's never going to happen. All right, well, anyway, let's get down to business. How do we leave Davos Seaworth? Not Stannis Seaworth. Davos Seaworth. That's
right.
Even right in the notes, I wrote their names wrong repeatedly.
Did you call him Davos Baratheon?
Davos Baratheon.
Did you get it that mixed up?
I don't think so. But actually, because we often just use the first letter in the notes, right?
Right.
Yeah. it was whenever I wrote the name out full. When I actually just did the letter, I was pretty regularly doing D, but when I wrote it out, I wrote Stannis.
Did you get?
Something's wrong.
We split the summary. I started it last night, and you finished it this morning, I assume.
Yes.
Did you get the S and the M's correct?
Yeah, our names I get. Those I get.
Okay.
All right. Last we saw of Davos, he was arguing to spare Edric Storm's life, whose blood had only caused 2 of the 3 usurper kings to die at that point, according to Melisandre. Melisandre wants all of Edric's blood in order to wake the stone dragon. Davos was continuing to learn reading and writing from Maester Pylos and was honing his skills on a letter from Maester Aemon describing the threats now facing the Night's Watch. Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one?
Okay, and with how that recap went, how could this possibly go wrong at all?
You see, you got to be careful saying things like that, because we said something like that after last week's background, and then I just edited it out. The mess. It was all gone. So it was like, what's he talking about? That was perfect.
Yeah, that very well might be the case. So if the recap sounded perfect, it wasn't in the raw footage perfect.
Yeah. Then Mackelly worked his magic.
So anyway,
but actually, that one might be outtake worthy though, because that was quite funny.
I think
the mistake I managed to make.
Yeah, I'll at the very least pull that off and put it in the outtakes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Davos watches the nightly prayer ceremony from a window. Melisandre leads the prayers, and Queen Selyse fervently leads the responses from the congregation. Axel Florent's voice can be heard above the rest. Davos thinks the man might just get his wish and rise to Stannis' Hand of the King if things go poorly tonight.
Stannis is in the congregation, but he neither sings nor prays. He simply stares into the night fire. Davos recalls asking Melisandre to teach him to see into the flames. She told him that it takes years to learn the art, and that men like Axel Florent are just cats seeing red mice in the flames.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. His train of thought is derailed when Sir Andrew Estermont reminds him that it's time to begin their mission. Davos has been honest with his co-conspirators. There's a good chance Melisandre has seen what they plan to do in her flames. He quickly squashes suggestions of murdering Melisandre by reminding the others of Maester Cressen's fate. If they don't put any focus on her, maybe she won't see them in their actions.
They arrive at Maester Pylos' rooms where Edric Storm is practicing his sums. Pylos tells the boy to get his cloak and go with Davos, but Edric reminds them that he won't pray to R'hllor. He, like his father, is a warrior's man. Pylos reminds Edric to obey Davos, who speaks with the king's voice. The boy wants to know where they're going, to a ship and away.
He wants to say his goodbyes to Shireen, but there's no time. Edric's stubbornness flares, but the voice of the king brings him around. At the water, by voice of the king.
When I wrote that made perfect sense, but now it sounds like Stannis said. Stannis is on the
plan? Yes, you remember the hand speaks with the king's voice. That is what is being referred to there. At the water, Davos wishes him farewell, knows he'll be brave and that the warrior will protect him. Edric hopes that the father will judge Davos fairly. Estermont and most of the other conspirators leave with the boy.
Davos goes to the painted table. Along the way, he thinks of his family and how he'll probably never see them again because of this. Stannis and Melisandre arrive. She's reporting the death of Joffrey. Stannis is skeptical, but Davos is actually able to confirm. Lyseni traders had brought the news and that Tyrion stands accused. Stannis recalls his not-nephew's cruelty to animals as a child. He now expects to be called back to King's Landing to rule.
Melisandre assures him that they won't. Tommen will be crowned and they will rule in his name. Stannis recalls Tommen as a sweeter child than Joffrey, but still born of the same incest. Melisandre has proven her power. Now she just needs the rest of Edric's blood, and Stannis will have his throne. Davos explains the insurmountable problem with that plan.
Stannis and Melisandre, not Simon and Mackelly, express their regrets for all they've done for Davos. Davos explains his thinking. Edric is a subject. Stannis as king needs to protect them all. Stannis argues that sending one child to the flames to save 1,000,000 from the darkness is worth it, and it's that kind of decision that a king must make. Melisandre repeats that Azor Ahai forged Lightbringer in his own true love's heart's blood. The Long Night will claim Edric and all the other children. Davos is meddling in stuff that he cannot understand.
Davos doubles down. A king protects his people, or he's no king at all. This brings Lightbringer back into the conversation as Stannis draws his sword. But Davos has one last card to play. He withdraws a crinkled letter from his cloak, smooths it out, and explains that the hand of the king has a duty to read and write. And then by the light of that sword, he reads the message to Stannis. Surely going to protect him now.
Could you hold that just a little bit closer? A little bit closer.
What could possibly go wrong with that plan?
Hold it real steady. Don't move it at all, please.
Well, a smuggler's gonna smuggle.
Yes, that's what Jenny of Allstones would have called this.
It is, yes. That's what this summary would have been called. A smuggler is gonna smuggle. He thinks that all he is a smuggler when it comes down to it. So there is no one better suited on the island to smuggle Edric out of Dragonstone.
Yeah, but actually, thinking about what a smuggler's role in life is it smuggling things out? Typically, smuggling is in, right?
Well,
I guess you could
smuggle either direction.
You do smuggle things out too. I mean, like if you're smuggling something across a border, it's going both out and in, you know?
True. Yes.
Yeah. So Davos notices that fewer people are praying with Melisandre than previous nights. Why might that be? Any suggestions, Mackelly?
Well, I mean, one thing is that he told us last chapter that some of the people were getting tired of Melisandre and R'hllor and leaning back toward the faith of the Seven. So that could be the reason why. I wondered if that line was put in there so that we might wonder if the missing people were waiting to foil the plan, that Melisandre saw it in her flames and thought, and had people that should have been in the nightly prayer off waiting to thwart this mission here.
I took it more literally to sort of mean that she's losing favor, that, the rank and file are not turning up for services. Perhaps people are beginning to desert Stannis' cause. And that, I mean, I think she is burning people at the stake for various crimes, so that will also chip into your numbers a little bit.
It will, yes, or at least it should. If you if you're thinking of the
at least by one,
right? Well, that's true. At least by one. Yeah, I mean they're on an island, so they'd have to. They'd have
not
to
an
take
infinite
a boat.
flow of people through
right?
Here, yeah. I'll say it's brave of Pylos to help, but honestly, and this is going to come up in pedantry, I think it's slightly foolish of Davos to involve Pylos, because Pylos might well have reported this to Stannis. Right. I mean, he may have sympathy for the cause of protecting Edric, but he also may not know what Melisandre's got planned. So he might see it as slightly treacherous of Davos and report it to Stannis. It seems to me that if Pylos has been teaching Edric that the hand speaks with the voice of the king, when the hand comes to the door and says, "I need the kid," Pylos isn't going to argue.
Right, so why even involve him in what you're planning?
Right.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And because Davos thinks when he's in Pylos's chambers, he thinks, I wasn't certain about the man, possibly because he replaced old Maester Crescent.
Right.
But now I see his bravery because this is his head on the line as much as mine. Not if you don't tell him what you're doing, Right. Just say, "I need the boy. The king needs him." Down.
Who'd argue with that? Yeah.
Yes, but you're right though. It is extra brave of Pylos because he knows full well how he got his job and what happened to his predecessor. So it's not like you're wondering, what might Melisandre do here?
To be fair, he can sort of like cloak himself in the, well, technically, Crescent killed himself.
Yes, right.
I don't have to drink the poison I provide. I can just say, I'm sorry.
Right. It was the voice of the king, is what it was.
Exactly. When he plotted with me in secret, he's still the voice of the king.
Right. Who am I to argue with the hand of the king?
Exactly. So, the co-conspirators here, the ones that, I mean, quite a few get mentioned in the end, because he basically, at every turn, he mentions another name. But
yes.
The first three that get mentioned are Andrew Estermont, the Bastard of Nightsong, and Gerald Gower. Mackelly, whenever we get names of people who kind of sound a bit familiar, like I might have come across them before, I turn to you.
Okay, well, let's see what I can do for you. Now, first of all, the Estermonts are super confusing because there's a conflict in the book canon on how some family members are related to other family members.
But that's going to help.
Yeah, but I think Andrew is fairly straightforward. First of all, we learned last Davos chapter, surprisingly didn't come up in the Jaime chapter, but last Davos chapter, we learned that he is a former squire to Stannis, and that Andrew is the son of Lomas Estermont, who is the brother to Cassana Estermont, who is Stannis' mother.
Okay.
So technically, Stannis and Andrew are first cousins, and Robert would be first cousins with him as well, which makes Edric kind of a second cousin.
First cousin once removed?
Is that what it is? Yeah, whatever.
I think so.
Whatever that is. The son of his first cousin. Whatever
yeah.
Whatever that relationship is. Now, Gerald Gower, there's really not much to say about him. He fought in the Battle of the Blackwater. He is suspicious of Stannis' support of R'hllor, which is probably why he's on this mission here. Tristan of Tally Hill gets a mention.
He did.
There's really nothing to add about him. I'm not even sure where Tally Hill is, aside from they owe fealty to House Sunglass, that house is from Sweetport Sound, somewhere in the Crown Lands.
Okay.
So, Lewis the Fishwife also gets a mention
twice.
Yes, and I have no additional info to provide on him. He seems to be a local to Dragonstone. And a fishwife, based on my research, is a woman who sells fish. So I'm not sure how he got the nickname Lewis the Fishwife, but,
Is he male?
I
thought he was when I read the chapter too, but now you're talking through it. I'm like, wait a minute.
Right.
Did they ever actually call him?
I feel like there was a male pronoun.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, because it never crossed my mind that it was female until you started saying this.
Yeah. And now finally, the Bastard of Nightsong, the reason why I waited for him for last is because we'll find out
You've actually got something
him.
usul to offer.
Yes, I'm going to talk about him in background. So,
exciting. Lovely.
Yes, and we discussed this off air, but all except for the Bastard of Nightsong go with Edric on his journey when he gets on the ship.
Yes.
Only the Bastard of Nightsong stays with Davos on Dragonstone.
And to be clear for people who didn't read the chapter, Pylos doesn't go.
Yeah, that's true.
He's a conspirator, but he was not part of the shipping him off.
Yes.
So, several times in this chapter, Davos worries for himself and his co-conspirators if things go badly. And I'm using air quotes there. But in this particular instance, he needs to be just as worried if things go well. Because it's not just the treachery, it's the effect of the treachery here. When they can't find Edric Storm, they're going to be mad.
Yes. Unless what he means by if things go badly is if Stannis doesn't forgive him. If Stannis can't forgive him.
I see. Yes, that's true. But I mean, again, Stannis is quite easy to read. He's going to be really mad about this.
Yes, it's a matter of what his punishment or what he deems is repercussions for this treachery is the problem.
Yeah, and it's for that reason it's probably a good idea that most of the co-conspirators skedaddled with Edric Storm. Which is...
I'm not sure how the Bastard of Night Song drew that short straw. Why do
Poor
I
guy
have to stay?
Poor guy doesn't even get a first name.
I know.
So one actually, it was interesting, sort of sharing the writing duties of the summary, because you spelled out a bit of this chapter that I was definitely going to spell out as well, which is the whole Davos thinking back to a conversation with Melisandre about trying to read the flames himself, and her explaining that it's not easy, it takes years of practice, and there's expertise required. But he's questions. He's like, I swear Axel Florent is going around telling anyone who'll listen that he's seen Stannis on the Iron Throne with him standing at his right hand side as Hand of the King. And her response is, any cat may stare into a fire and see red mice at play, which is a good line. I really like that line.
It is a really good line.
But I did wonder about that line. Is there a little bit of a jibe or a lesson, perhaps, for Stannis in it? Because Stannis definitely sees things in the flames. Is he also a cat just seeing what he wants to see?
I know what you're saying. It's a good question. First of all, how he is seeing things in the flames so quickly, and what is now we know the difference between what Stannis is seeing and what Axel is claiming to have seen is that Stannis saw something we know actually happened. He described pretty well the fight on the Fist of the First Men between the Night's Watch and the
That's
Whites.
Very true, yes.
So we do know he has seen something that we can verify, but how he would have learned so quickly, that I'd spent some time thinking about, and the best I could come up with is Salador San, one of the first things he told Davos when Davos was rescued, is that Stannis and Melisandre have been spending a ton of time in the depths of Dragonmont. So maybe it was like some sort of crash course in flame seeing, being that he was looking into a volcano. Maybe that helps speed things along or something.
Yeah, I was going to mention the same thing, actually, because Stannis is not a POV character, so we only hear little bits about what he's seeing. Maybe he is actually seeing quite a lot of things. I just assume that you're absolutely right to point out the one thing that we know that he's seen is a thing that we know is true. But spending all that time, you've got to imagine he's getting some kind of sense of how things are going to go for him, not just random visions of what's going on 1,000 miles away.
Right.
Yeah. And those visions could definitely influence his decisions if he's seeing positive outcomes for himself,
Sure. Yeah.
And I think Melisandre pulls the strings a little bit here because she wants him to keep going. And so a vision of him freezing to death in the north is probably one she'll quickly push the coals around a little bit.
Right. Just going to move this around over here. Just poke this area. It needs a little sparking. Now, Davos did notice that Stannis was staring intensely at the flames during the nightly ceremony. So we don't know. Was he seeing something? Clearly, he wasn't seeing Joff's death in the flames because he didn't even believe her when she said, I saw that in the flames.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
I really like the idea of Melisandre sneaking off to the Dragonstone blacksmith and saying, listen, can you make me a little, 3 inches high iron throne? I'm going to stick it in the fire. And
every time he looks at it.
It's got to be flame proof, okay?
That would be pretty funny. Now, but why did Davos ask, I did say it right, I don't know why I thought I said it wrong. Why would Davos ask Melisandre to teach him to see in the flames? I found that kind of surprising.
Well, again, I mean, God, I think Dragonstone is being so utterly boring
Entertainment purposes only.
It's like 4 months of plotting against Melisandre. You're going to have some conversations with her. Like,
Yeah.
How does this work then?
Well,
I stare in the flames.
wonder.
I see red mice. That's all I see.
That's all I see is red mice. So I came up with a few thoughts. Could he just be dabbling in the religion of R'hllor like the rest bought into, just to see, like, how do I feel about this? Or possibly means of getting closer to Melisandre to make her think that he's on her side. You know, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. Or maybe he's hoping to learn a new skill, like you said, while he's just bored on Dragon. So he learned to read and write. Now he'll learn to look into the flames. Maybe that would have been a better thing to do here at the end of the chapter. Be like, watch this.
What's the Dragonstone jester? Is that Patchface?
Yeah.
Hey, teach me to juggle. I've got nothing else to do.
All kinds of useful skills.
Every time we come back to Davos, he's like a one-man band of new things he's learned.
He's learned to play the triangle. But also I thought Melisandre talks Davos out of it. He says, "Can you teach me how to look into the flames?" And she says, "Oh, goodness, no, it would take years. It takes, this is not something you can just do." And I wondered if maybe she was downplaying the, how capable he would be of doing it, because she doesn't want him to learn how to do it and see something she doesn't want him to see and go to Stannis with.
But also, I will say, I've got to imagine that a degree of the skill here is faith. And he is the one furthest away from having any faith. Axel and Stannis, they believe.
They have varying levels of faith there.
Gets them part of the way. She's probably saying, first of all, I got about 8 years of teaching you this bloody religion that you don't believe in, and then I can teach you to look into the flames.
Right. Steps here. It's a steps thing.
Right.
But now is as good a time to discuss this as any, since we're talking about Melisandre and the flames. But she didn't see them smuggling Edric. And
right.
Davos's description is kind of like he could see kind of the puzzling look on her face, like, I didn't see that coming. How did I not see that coming? And Davos has a theory that he mentions to his co-conspirators early on in the chapter. He says she seems to really see things that affect her person. If it's something that's going to affect her, she seems to pick that up really quickly. So if maybe we don't even think about her, she won't see it. I don't know if that's what happened or not, but that's his theory on it anyway.
What's interesting about that is Cressen's attempt on her life was just him. So he didn't voice this to anyone. He thought about it, presumably, but she picked up on that.
Right.
Whereas this one, a group of people actually talked about murdering her, rejected the idea, but she didn't pick up on this, or perhaps she picked up on it and realized and they rejected it. But you'd think she'd follow that string to see where it landed, because it did end up in a place where she did not want to lose Edric Storm.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I just find it fascinating if it's because it wasn't focused on her.
Not to be too mundane with the response here, Mackelly, but I mean, she's got a lot she's got to look at in the flames. You think about it.
True. Yeah. And that's what Davos said. She can't see everything.
Yeah.
So it very well might just be that got lost in the shuffle.
I've got a vision of Stannis reading the racing news and saying, "Who's going to win the 340 at Belmont?" And she's like, "Oh, here I go again."
Is this all you use me for here? Trying to win a throne, and all you want to know is who's going to win the next race. Well, he does need an influx of cash. So
yes, it's true. But yeah, I mean, you've got to imagine threats against her and threats against Stannis will be the first two things, and then sort of like Stannis' future. And it feels like Edric could fall through the cracks there. But you're right, it was such an important part of her plan, Edric's blood.
Right. Yes, that you'd think he would be a little higher on the list of flame priorities.
Do you want to speculate where Edric's going? I mean, Davos, I don't think, knows, right? He kept it from himself. So that
I would think so. He doesn't say whether he knows or not, but he tells Melisandre and Stannis that he doesn't know where he's going. But I would think, if I were him, I would not have them tell me where he's going. I wondered if maybe the ship Mad Prendos has Marcella's itinerary on her way to Sunspear. That would definitely confuse any pursuers. Maybe they start in Dorne. They do it in reverse. They start in Dorne and they work their way.
I'm not sure dropping Edric off in King's Landing is the right thing to do.
Right, yes.
But
he tells Stannis and Melisandre that he's crossed the sea, or maybe, no, he tells Edric,
he's going to cross the sea.
The sea. Yes, that's who it is.
Which makes you think towards Essos, right?
Yes.
I mean, technically from Dragonstone, everywhere is across the sea, but
right. Yes, could be literally taking him to King's Landing would be across the bay at least.
Right. Yeah. But that's right. Essos does seem to be the most likely thing because because, if no other reason, that there isn't anywhere in Westeros he would be safe, really, because he is. I mean, Cersei wants all of Robert's bastards killed.
Oh, true. Oh, yes, she does.
Stannis' side wants him killed. Nobody else really cares about him, but...
what if they took him to the Vale to be with his sister Maya Stone?
Oh, yeah.
I doubt they'll be thinking about that, but... Yeah. I'm sure Stannis would... If Stannis was aware of the plan, he might say, send him to his sister Maya Stone. I don't know that Davos knows that Robert fathered a child in the Vale.
Yeah.
So, but I do think it's a good decision to have Andrew Estermont accompany Edric.
Do tell.
Well, because it's a relative. They're cousins at whatever level, and Andrew is from the Stormlands, so you'd think he probably spent some time at Storm's End. Edric might have maybe known him all his life, and someone that he knows and trusts.
Was it Andrew who squired for Stannis?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, they would have overlapped, right? I mean, Stannis lived at Storm's End when Edric did. Oh, no, he didn't.
No, he wouldn't have, because that would have been after Robert's rebellion.
Right, and also after Stannis' wedding.
Yes. Yes.
About 9 months after Stannis' wedding.
To the day.
Okay. So, but yes, I agree. I think Andrew Estermont, he came across in very few lines in this chapter as being someone who was quite warm and friendly towards Edric. So
I agree. Yeah. And, Andrew's also probably not too upset about not sticking around for the aftermath either. He's probably like, I'll go with the boy.
I think everyone would be.
Yes.
Davos' reminiscence about we kind of skipped over this a little bit, but he reminisces about home and his wife and how this night's actions are probably going to mean that he'll never see her again. And it made me think about that a little bit. And honestly, I think most of us would be kept from doing the bravest, most honourable, noble, selfless things by the very thought of the comforts of home and our loved ones. And I am pretty sure I couldn't bring myself to do it. I don't have Stannis or Davos's unflinching eye on the prize.
Well, he does the thing that so many of us do. He makes promises that if I make it through this night, I'm going to take Devon and we're going to go home and my wife and I are going to mourn the death of our children and we're going to raise our living children. And he does that. It's like, dear God, if you get me through this, I swear I'll go to church every Sunday. I swear I'll call my parents every weekend. And we'll see if he makes it through the night, whether he does give it all up and go back to Cape
The problem
Wrath.
with that plan is there's only two real outcomes for this. One is Stannis kills him. The second one is Stannis forgives him and therefore treats him ever more as his most trusted and closest advisor. So there's no escape for Davos.
Right, he's either dead or he's still in service of Stannis.
Yeah.
He does look fondly at what he already has and wishes that he hadn't risen so high or possibly taken on this dangerous, if noble task, which is also a pretty natural feeling to have at this point. I have to imagine that a lot of people who go to prison for like white collar crimes, like embezzling and stuff, they have this thought because enough wasn't enough. And they think I just stopped a few years ago before it got out of control, but when is enough ever enough? And so.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about my nefarious past now. No, I'm not. Actually, Lucas and I are watching Deadwood, and the thing happens in one of the very first episodes where $20,000 changes hand, and this is like 1850, 1855, something like that.
So good chunk of change.
Exactly. And this guy takes it and basically won't give anyone else their cut of it and keeps it for himself. And I'm like, surely you're now going to retire, right? You're going to get out of there, But he doesn't. It's just the beginning
exactly,
of the story.
because enough is never enough.
Yeah.
When is enough enough? When it's too late. That's when enough is enough.
Yeah. So Davos confirms Melisandre's story about Joffrey. He didn't have to. He could have said nothing, but he had heard the same thing, so you wouldn't want to keep that from Stannis.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to compound your crimes of the evening by keep withholding.
Yeah, I guess if Stannis learned that Davos knew, but it didn't seem like Stannis was going to give Melisandre Edric until he confirmed that Joffrey was dead. So if Davos had just been like, I don't know, or just said nothing, it might have given the ship even more time to get away.
Had this been the night before, maybe that was the catalyst for enacting the plan, was learning the news that Joffrey was dead. Maybe the plotting here was all about, if Joffrey dies in the near future, we've got to get Edric Storm out of here that day.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure it's only a matter of time before Davos learned. I mean, before Stannis learned of Joffrey's death. But they were on an island, so it might have taken a little time to confirm this fact.
Yeah.
Especially if nobody came forth and said, "Oh no, she's right," the minute that they're having this conversation.
And Stannis then has a wistful moment. I mean, after reminding himself and others that Joffrey was not his nephew, but he has a wistful moment remembering the child, which is kind of nice of him. But his memory of the child is one of the child being an absolute monster, of course, because
right.
It's hard not to remember Joffrey in those terms, because those are the only terms he ever put forward. But you said we heard this story before about the cat.
We heard, so when Joffrey snapped at Tywin, and basically Tywin sent him to his room.
Just one second, before you start with that, let's say what the cat story is, because we didn't say.
Oh yes, go ahead. Yes.
So the cat story, as we heard it tonight, and I don't remember the previous retelling of the cat story, was that the kitchen cat at King's Landing was pregnant, and someone told Joffrey, who was small at the time, that the cat had little kittens inside it, and so he cut it open to look for the kittens, which is not nice.
Yes, and then took those kittens and showed them to Robert, where Robert hit Joffrey so hard that Stannis thought maybe he was going to end up killing him.
Right.
So the version we heard before in that Tyrion chapter where they were all discussing Robb Stark's death, basically, and Tywin and Joff kind of got into it a little bit, and Joff told Tywin, "You hid under Casterly Rock while my father won the war," and he Tywin sent Joffrey to bed without dinner. Recall that?
Yep.
Recall that bit happening. Well, after the fact, Tywin and Cersei are talking about. Tywin's like, "I thought he didn't have any love for his father," and she said, "He doesn't. He shouldn't." And she mentions that Robert hit him so hard over some mischief with a cat. So that was all it was mischief with a cat. Yeah, is what we heard.
That sounds like what Cersei would call butchering a cat and killing its unborn kittens. Yeah.
Now both parties, Stannis and Cersei, agree that Robert hit Joffrey really hard.
Yeah,
it's the mischief with the cat versus the reality of what he did to the cat that is the difference here.
Yeah. Then Stannis says something which is deeply dumb, I think. He says, "Dwarf or leech," referring to who it was that killed Joffrey. "The killer served the realm well. They must send for me now." Now,
has he been paying no attention to this point?
Right, exactly. There might be a knee-jerk thought, like, "Oh, maybe they'll call for me." But Melisandre said when she burned the leeches. that this wasn't going to do any good, that you'd just be killing the one king to replace them with another king. It wasn't going to get him any nearer the throne.
Right. Yeah,
so
he did say that.
That he's forgotten all this seems sort of Simon-like in Stannis's.
It seems very unlikely that the Lannisters are just going to roll over at this point and be like, "Ah, well, Joffrey died. Let's head back to the Rock."
Although you do remember last week we were speculating that that's exactly what they should do. Just leave Tywin in charge.
Tywin in control, right?
Yeah.
And then he says to Davos, they get into kind of into a spat over Edric and whether or not Edric's life should be sacrificed or saved. And Stannis says, "Spare me your reproaches. I like this no more than you, but my duty is to the realm." And this is obviously regarding sacrificing Edric. And I just felt like he's really, I feel like he's hiding behind this "it's my duty to the realm" idea.
Right. Yeah, but give him some credit because the one thing he said about the one death to save a million, if you've been coached into thinking that really would happen, that if we just sacrifice Edric, you can save the whole realm from the long night to come.
Yes.
It would be tempting, however horrible. And I think Stannis has a conscience. I mean, I think he knows it's horrible.
I agree. I feel like he's not entirely being honest with himself that sacrificing his nephew is a gain for Stannis. You know, it is a ultimate. If things go as Melisandre keeps telling him it will go, Stannis will become the king. He'll save the world. It's not like Stannis is like, I'm going to sacrifice Edric, and then someone else is going to benefit from this.
No, but
well, it's true. Everyone would benefit theoretically, I guess.
Right. There might be a selflessness to this. He knows that he's going to have to live with that on his conscience for the rest of his life. I think he knows that Shireen likes Edric. Yeah. Yeah,
and he has already expressed struggling with Renly's death.
Right.
So yeah. It does. Like you said, it certainly doesn't help with Melisandre saying things like, "You're the prince who was promised. If you fail, the world fails. Give me the boy and I'll give you a kingdom." You know, things like that, as you said, are guiding him to believing, if I kill this boy, I'll save the world.
Right. And that's the key difference, I think. If he truly believes that all Edric's death will give him is the throne, then he should refuse to do it.
I agree.
Win the throne by your prowess in battle and by being the great leader. But if there's some existential threat to the people of the realm that could be prevented, then weigh that up. Weigh that up and decide whether you can live with what you'd have to do.
Yeah, one child versus a million, you could certainly make the argument for that. But Stannis did swear to Courtney Penrose, who was the Castellan of Storm's End, that he would never hurt Edric, his own blood. Ultimately, it seems like Penrose was right to defend Edric with his life, because it turns out Stannis was about to have Edric killed for... Yeah. Even if it is for the most noblest of causes.
Right, and I'm not saying I'm not saying it's the noblest of causes. I'm just saying that belief could shape where this goes. You know, I think without that belief, I think Stannis would resist this. But with that belief, it's tipping him over the edge.
Yes,
again,
I agree with you.
Little motto for my life: don't assume someone's worst motivation for their action is their only motivation for their action.
Oh, very deep. I like that.
So all that leads me to the question is Melisandre the only person who's really seeing the big picture here? It does seem that the Game of Thrones is, to a certain extent, window dressing to the Song of Ice and Fire.
Right.
You know, we know that the existential threat is coming from the north, and the dead are rising. The Seven Kingdoms are not equipped to repel them. So who takes the role of fire against that ice, if not Stannis? So as I say those words, I'm beginning to feel the beat of what Melisandre's saying to him, and I can see how it becomes compelling.
Right, like I need to do this because I need to save the world. Yeah. Now, hear this theory out.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go, cutting room floor.
So if Melisandre is seeing the disaster that she claims she does, and I believe that she does believe that she is seeing the end of the world if Stannis doesn't become Azor Ahai.
It could just be the type of cat she is, of course.
Right. Well, what about rather than urging for war, what about urging for peace? I mean, Azor Ahai wasn't a king, to my knowledge. And Stannis keeps saying he doesn't want the throne. He says it all the time. I don't want this throne. I just happen to be the king. So I know this would be incredibly hard after all the things that have gone on, but let Tommen have the throne, help the Lannisters prepare for the Great Other. With Joff gone now, he knows that Tommen is a more gentle king. Maybe try for peace. Now, surely it's going to be hard to accept the incest, the treachery to his brother and to House Baratheon, but honestly, he didn't really care for Robert all that much anyway. And if swallowing his pride means victory over the Great Other, wouldn't that also be a sacrifice that he is speaking of with Edric? Maybe unite the realm that way rather than trying to win the throne by force.
You know what? Usually I snort in derision at this point. But actually, you make a lot of sense, you know? And the thing is, it's kind of like the harvest. It's kind of like, just put your animosity on hold for a while to deal with the thing we have to deal with now. You can always come back and make your claim to the throne in a year's time.
Right, yeah. I'm sure, I don't know that Stannis would be the kind of person that would be able to do it. But maybe that's the sacrifice he needs to make.
Yeah.
You know, not sacrificing the boy.
But also maybe that's where the story goes, because as we leave this chapter, the only other person who seems to think that there is an existential threat coming from the north might be Davos.
Right.
Because Davos has read this letter and it's freaked him out, the letter from Maester Aemon. And so, weirdly, Melisandre and Davos may end up giving Stannis the same piece of advice.
Yeah.
What you've just said. Put aside your ambitions now, save the realm, then press your claim.
Right. Yeah. And Melisandre thinks that it doesn't matter that you saved Edric by getting him out of Dragonstone. He's going to die regardless of where he's hiding when the darkness and the cold cover the earth. So based on that, it seems like she feels the seas are going to freeze over, because otherwise there's some places that are not on continents that have far northern lands, like the Summer Isles, that would be a good place for him to go, the Summer Isles. That's kind of remote and warm climate. Sometimes I imagine Melisandre in Asshai during her training, and I wonder, was she like the top student, president of her class, or was she like a kid that the other kids didn't really know what to do with because she was always talking about the apocalypse? You know, were they like, okay, Mel, because surely they'd call her Mel. Melisandre's way too much of a mouthful. Yeah. Okay, Mel, we get it. The world is ending. The Great Other, cold death, yada, yada, yada. I was asking you if that's what you were wearing to the pub tonight.
Have you seen the actress on Seth?
Seth Meyers. That was what made me think of that. That dinner party.
That is extremely funny. So, I just wanted to make one little joke that it feels like at the end of the chapter that Davos is hoping that his ability to read and write a little bit are going to keep him from getting killed by Davos. By Stannis. By Stannis. Of course, just a joke. It's the content of that Maester Aemon letter that he thinks will be his salvation. What do we know? What Maester Aemon said? Do you remember what? Did we know specifically what it said?
Just that Mance Rayder was coming with all his force, and that Mormont was lost in a battle. I don't think it specifically mentioned any whites or others or anything like that. Okay, just that they believed Mormont lost, and Ravens came back with no messages or anything like that.
That's interesting because that makes it a little bit less of a sell to me. The Night's Watch has already been understaffed for a long time. What difference does it make if it's understaffed now? Oh, there's a king beyond the wall. The wall is still 700 feet high, right?
Right, yeah. Now, Stannis certainly feels betrayed, understandably so. His new Hand of the King went behind his back, just like the previous Hand of the King. But surely Davos prepared for this part, right? He has some plan. He must think this is going to... He calls it, this letter, his shield.
Right.
So, whatever he's about to read, and we assume it's the letter from Maester Aemon, but we don't know for a fact because he never actually starts reading it. But whatever he's about to read, he believes or hopes will cause Stannis to stay this execution.
Although, questioning that guarantee that it's the Maester Aemon letter, Davos found that letter so troubling that he put it aside in the last chapter. He didn't actually read it. He was so troubled by it.
Right.
So,
yes.
I mean, that makes you think it is that letter, but at the same time, he might never have gone back to it.
Right. Yeah, so what is in the letter that'll do the trick? I wondered if possibly it was a letter from Publishers Clearinghouse. He had won $10 million. Ed McMahon was going to present him with a giant check. Or maybe it was a letter from a deposed prince with millions of gold dragons who just wants to give some to Stannis if he'll just send him 50 gold dragons up front. Maybe one of those letters really do the trick here.
Brilliant.
Would the letter that we believe he's reading, which is the same letter that Tywin got, will it be effective? Because Tywin pretty much just discounted it and used it as a means to try and put Jaina Slint in charge. So,
right.
As you were saying, possibly he's read other letters between now and then, and this is something else that is more important.
Why don't you give us some background, Mackelly?
All right, I feel like I can do that.
Who is the Bastard of Nightsong? We got to know.
So the Bastard of Nightsong, as we mentioned, is one of the men helping Davos smuggle Edric out of Dragonstone. His real name is Roland Storm. Not Roland Shit from Schitt's Creek, but Roland Storm. Have you watched Schitt's Creek? It's a fantastic show.
Yeah.
We just watched it through a second time.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That is a show. That is a show which... this seems to be the modern trend in particularly American, but sort of TV comedies generally, that they are more about heart and sweetness than about comedy. Like Ted Lasso falls into that category too for me. Ted Lasso was way more about being sweet to each other than actually being funny. But
Schitt's Creek.
I loved Schitt's Creek, and I didn't really like Ted Lasso, to be clear.
Well, because there's always still that cattiness, and some selfishness in most of the characters. Anyway, we've slightly gotten off track here. We're talking about Roland Storm. He is the natural-born son of Lord Brian Caron and the half-brother of Bryce Caron, the late Lord of Nightsong, who became Lord when their father died. Now, Roland and Bryce both originally backed Renly, to the point where Bryce was Bryce the Orange and Renly's Rainbow Guard. Roland might not have been a Rainbow Guard, but he was no slouch as a warrior. He led Stannis' rear guard during Stannis' retreat in the Battle of Blackwater, which allowed Stannis to escape with his life. So it's pretty clear that Roland is brave and also rather loyal to Stannis. Now here's where things get kind of interesting with old Roland. It's not only Bryce and Brian who have died in Roland's family. Basically, their whole family was wiped out by illness in 289 AC. Their father Brian, Bryce's mother, their other brother, and their sisters, all gone now. So that leaves Roland as the only man standing from the immediate family. I bring this up because Roland might have a lot to lose by betraying Stannis. If Stannis were to win the throne, Stannis could legitimize Roland and make him Lord of Nightsong. But there is one slight hiccup here. His brother Bryce was killed in single combat during the Battle of Blackwater by Sir Philip Foote. For that, the Lannisters made Philip Lord of Nightsong. So Roland really needs a Stannis victory here in order to get any chance of becoming Lord of his house's seat. Now, One final thing I'll add. Davos told us last chapter that Roland worships the warrior from the Faith of the Seven quite fiercely. So that might also explain why he's not on board with the Melisandre and R'hllor thing and willing to risk a possible lordship to save a young boy's life.
Very good. Yeah, that's interesting. I did not know any of that. So I guess his brother's vanquisher has 1 foot in the Knights.
He's got a foot up on him.
All right, so comparison with the television show. Obviously, the main difference here is the character. In the television show, the character of Edric Storm was dropped entirely and was replaced by Gendry, who had been brought to Dragonstone by Melisandre, who did a strange journey to Westeros where she picked up Gendry from the Brothers Without Banners and brought him back. It was
I remember.
Slightly odd.
I remember you telling me when I was watching the show but hadn't read the books yet that Gendry was kind of a combination of a whole bunch of Robert's bastards.
Yeah, exactly, because Myra Stone doesn't exist either, so I think he's got elements of her too. So Edric's part as Blood Donor was taken by Gendry, and then Gendry has another story arc still to come, and I have no idea if that corresponds with Edric's or not, so I won't get into where Gendry goes. But Gendry is whisked away from Dragonstone on a boat because Davos does it, and Davos is treated as a traitor for doing so. So much the same, really.
Yes.
Pedantry. Just the sheer head count of the number of people involved in a conspiracy, which really only needed Davos and Salador Saan.
Right.
It really didn't need anybody else. It's slightly strange to me how many people. I mean, you think what Dragonstone is like. I mean, Dragonstone must be like Berlin in 1938. You would not conspire with anyone you didn't know and trust. They weren't a family member. You wouldn't trust anyone on Dragonstone.
Sure, yeah. And it's such a small, confined place that everybody would know everybody's business anyway.
Exactly.
You know?
And Davos has confided this plan, which didn't need anybody else, in half the place.
Right, yeah. You could go through it pretty quick. Davos goes to Maester Pylos and says, I need Edric. He's the hand of the king. Okay, here's Edric.
Here he is.
Davos walks Edric to the ship and says...
To the boat. Salador Saan has told 4 of his men, take that boat to the shore, bring back whoever Davos puts in the boat with you. That's it.
Now, maybe you want to include Andrew just so that this little boy isn't going off on an adventure on his own, I guess.
Nice. But unnecessary.
It is. They could have, theoretically, once they got him to the boat, they could have taken him kicking and screaming if need be.
Right.
Saving his life regardless.
Yeah. News and notes.
Well, so one thing we wanted to mention is that we mentioned this last week, so I just wanted to follow up on it. We're working on some, possibly some new sustainer tiers on the Buy Me a Coffee site. So if you like existing tiers and their prices, now is the time to lock in before we might add some new things and change some things around. So go check it out at our Buy Me a Coffee site. And also, we've been discussing some cool new perks. So, we're looking at we don't want to roll something out and then we're feeling some things out.
We want to do this once and do it right. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So I'll give you as much time as you need to think about it, Mackelly. And look, if you can't help us out financially, we totally understand that. But one way that you could help us is to give us a rating or a review somewhere. In particular, we'd love it if you could do that on Apple Podcasts. We looked at our breakdown, and 75% of our listeners are on Spotify. That's fine. We have no problem with listeners on Spotify. But
great.
If you look at who listens to podcasts, the majority of people listen to podcasts on Apple. So we're missing out on a big potential market by not having listeners on Apple. And the reason we don't have listeners on Apple is because we don't get as many reviews there. So if you could take a minute to give us a review on Apple, that would help us a great deal, even if you can't help us financially.
Exactly. Sure would.
Let's conclude this one. So Davos once again puts his head in the noose for others, selflessly trying to bring down his king.
Surely he has a better plan than showing off his new skill. There's got to be more to it. It's like, but wait till next week when I juggle.
He rolls out the scroll and he goes, A, B, C. Oh, headsman, put away your sword.
There's got to be more to this. There has to be.
But yeah, I actually think he's going to build a bridge with Melisandre at this point, and they are going to show Stannis that his true path is through the north somehow, either to go there or to focus his attention there or something to help.
Sure. Yeah.
To become the embodiment of Azor Ahai by fighting the ice.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if he reads the letter that we think he is going to read, then what other option would there be? You know, like that would be the. Now, we don't know what letter he's going to read, but if we read the one he thinks he's going to read, then yes, he and Melisandre probably would be aligning in their advice.
Yep.
But Melisandre didn't see this coming. Does that mean anything?
Maybe. She's not omnipotent. Or, sorry, she's not omniscient, I should say.
Oh, right. Yes, yes. Yeah, is there a way to escape her vision, or was she just distracted and missed it? I mean, those are the two things we
maybe the secret is to tell half of the English-speaking world your plans, and then she doesn't know about your plans because too many people are thinking about them.
Right, yes. It gets all jumbled up because
when it was just Crescent, she couldn't miss it. But when half of Dragonstorm was plotting against her, she completely missed it.
And you know what else I was thinking about in this chapter? I don't think they need stone dragons. Why don't they just keep tossing leeches into the fire? Just Tywin, Cersei, right on down the line. Just wipe out all his enemies.
Pull them from Stannis himself. You don't need Edric Storm.
Oh, yeah. Stannis has to have recovered. You know, she said his fires were burning too low before Davos. Yeah. But that was a while ago.
Yeah.
I mean, he could certainly draw a little bit of blood from him at this point.
But Melisandre's right about that. Just picking off an enemy and getting rid of that one. There's always another one to fill their boots. So,
True.
You know,
yes.
there's a limit to how effective that is. Although, pretty handy. A boost to your side, you know.
Could they get another shadow assassin out there?
Right. Who's up next? It says up next here, but it doesn't say who it is. So I'm hoping you've looked ahead.
I have. Next up, we are off to the Wall to check in on Jon. And I'll just say this. If you thought the Battle of Castle Black was over, you were wrong.
Uh-oh.
Yes. You want to tune in next week and find out what's going on up there.
All right. Well, there's 4 ways that you can help us. You could leave us a positive review. We would really appreciate that. You can buy merchandise at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com. You can buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal. Become a sustainer at the Lord Paramount or Knight of the Realm level while you still can. And if you just want to donate directly to our cause, you can do that through our website, ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And we'd appreciate all of those things. And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, to keep up on the latest GOH news and developments, you can check us out on our social medias. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal, or on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, where we have lots of fun, and YouTube.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.